Hey guys, so at this point in time, both Democrats are going to win both of their Senate races. They are now at 50 seats, the Republicans is 50. You already had Raphael Warnock's race already called. However, the race between Jon Ossoff and David Perdue is not currently called by most networks. However, it's at this point it's pretty much clear that Jon Ossoff is going to defeat David Perdue. There's really no chance for Perdue to come back. There is technically a chance of that occurring, but really it's so close to zero that at this point you can safely say that the Democrats have won 50 seats in the Senate to the Republicans is 50, but they do have the vice presidency, which means that the Democratic Party has flipped the United States Senate. And before we go any further into this video, make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. I also have channel memberships for 99 cents a month, so click on that blue join button if you're interested in gaining some extra perks on this channel. So the Democrats, they really gained seats in a way that I think a lot of people did not expect. They won Arizona and Colorado, which were pretty much expected. They lost Alabama, which was also expected, so that gave them a net gain of 1. And before these two runoff races yesterday, it was looking like 48-50, and the Republicans had a pretty big chance of winning one of those seats at least, but now both Democrats have flipped. And we also saw North Carolina, Cal Cunningham, an absolute disappointment to the Democratic Party. It was his whole sexting scandal that lost the Democrats that race. If he did not do that, I'm confident that he would have won the state of North Carolina. I mean, Tom Tillis was very beatable, but he screwed over the entire Democratic Party with that. Montana looked as if it was promising for a while, but then it became Montana again, and Steve Bullock lost to Steve Daines. Iowa, Teresa Greenfield did worse than expected. Susan Collins destroyed Sarah Gideon if you were to look at the polls and what people expected. So Susan Collins did very, very well there in the state of Maine. John Cornyn did all right in Texas, but those were really all of the seats that Democrats had a chance of flipping. Georgia was also in play, but really not as much as many of these other races. I mean, North Carolina, I think, was the shocker, and Maine. So these two races, Iowa was expected to be less than 2%, but North Carolina and Maine, these two races were the shockers that Republicans did so well. And even in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham won by almost 10% over Jamie Harrison, which was the most expensive Senate race ever. Jamie Harrison was able to raise the most money in 1 month, for any Senate candidate ever, except for David Perdue, Kelly Leffler, Jon Ossoff, or Raphael Warnock. So these two races were the most expensive ever, but before that, it was the South Carolina race for Jamie Harrison, and he lost by almost 10% to Lindsey Graham. So the Senate was definitely pretty disappointing. It looked as if Democrats would not be able to flip, but they ended up doing so, and today we'll take a look at those numbers. So the Senate results here between Ossoff and Perdue at this point in time. Ossoff at 50.2, Perdue at 49.8. My prediction was 50.3 and 49.7, but Ossoff's numbers will go up. There are 98% of votes left, and I'll go through what those votes are in just a few moments here, where they're coming from, those extra 2%. But Jon Ossoff at this point, he is leading by a larger margin than Joe Biden led by. However, he is probably not going to win more votes than Joe Biden. That's just not going to happen because there is a little bit of a lower turnout here. But Jon Ossoff at 5.2, David Perdue 49.8, with a turnout at this point in time expected to be around 2.44 million votes. So a little bit shy of 2.5 million, but definitely this is a very good turnout, much higher than I had actually expected. For the Senate special runoff election, you had Raphael Warnock, who is currently sitting at 50.6%, to Kelly Leffler's 49.4%, and he is going to defeat Kelly Leffler. There is no doubt about that. This race has already been called by everyone. I believe Newsmax actually called it earlier. If you don't know what that is, it's like Fox, but more to the right, so they support Trump a lot more than what Fox has done, I guess. So surprised that they actually called it first, but Raphael Warnock will defeat Kelly Leffler, and as you can see, Raphael Warnock just did a little bit better than Ossoff by around 0.4%, which was expected. He was expected to do at least a little bit better than Jon Ossoff, especially in that Atlanta area. He did a little bit better than him there. So if we were to compare this to the race between Perdue and Ossoff, so I want to compare these results with the results that they saw in November to see, just where did Ossoff specifically improve. And you see a lot of it is just in Atlanta. I mean, you have 69 69.8% there in Fulton County. That's the big one in Atlanta. Fulton County, 69.8 for Jon Ossoff in November. Now in January, he's at 71.6%. And in a county as large as Fulton, that is a big deal. DeKalb County, 97% of the votes in. We're still waiting on more votes from there. 83.3% right now. In November, 81.2%. And Raphael Warnock did a little bit better than Jon Ossoff in both of those counties. You also have Chatham County, where Jon Ossoff won 59.1%. Last time, he won 57.5%. I think that the reason, honestly, Trump lost these Republicans these two seats. These two seats, they were easy holds for the Republican Party. Georgia is still a red state. They just rejected Trump because the state of Georgia, you see there is a lot of support for Republicans still in that state, and a lot of Republicans voted for Democrats just because they did not like Trump. So I think that with Trump saying that he won Georgia, and Georgia is not a state like South Carolina, if Trump said the same thing in South Carolina, he would do great, these two Republicans. But in Georgia, it is different. In Georgia, most people believe that their vote was legitimate. They believe that their vote did count, and they believe that the results of the race were accurate, that Joe Biden won. And Trump, spending the last 2 months delegitimizing it. And whenever he campaigned for these Republicans, all he talked about was his race most of the time. So I think a lot of Republicans just got fed up that Trump kept saying how their votes, didn't count, or how, it was fraud occurring everywhere, when that isn't true. And that's what most Georgians believe. So that did not help these two Republicans. David Perdue, he shouldn't have lost his race if this was, any normal year, but it is 2020, 2021. Kelly Leffler, she probably would have won if, you had Mitt Romney or someone like that as president. And even if Mitt Romney lost, I think that these Republicans would have done a lot better. So now Chuck Schumer will become the Senate Majority Leader, and Mitch McConnell will be kicked out. I believe they'll also be replacing Chuck Grassley as well, and Bernie Sanders will be in charge of the Budget Committee, I believe. So, you're going to have a lot of changes there in the Senate, but Jon Ossoff and Raphael Warnock have delivered it for the Democratic Party. If you want to take a look at the New York Times election needle, I guess. So basically, they have right now Warnock plus 2%. The range is between 1.2 to 3%. 2% would be very good for my prediction. Jon Ossoff plus 1.1%, which would be over my prediction by around half a percentage point. But we'll see what happens. I think that is going to be a little bit lower. But as you can see, just 10 minutes ago, Ossoff's lead has grown to what it is now, 17,567 points, and he is now out of the 0.5% margin, which means that he will avoid the recount if he just gains a little bit more votes. He's just shy of that 0.5% margin that he needs to avoid the automatic recount. Now, for Warnock versus Leffler, it's already Warnock wins. They already called it, but if you do want to take a look at the results, you have all the votes here, and these are the estimated votes that remain. You see, basically, from these Republican counties, you see less than 1,000 votes from all of them. That's just what they automatically say. So really, there are no more votes from all of these counties. Atlanta, you have 18,000 expected for Warnock, 2,000 for Leffler. That's going to increase his numbers by, 16,000 votes in his net gain. Fulton County, you have 9,000 for Warnock, 2,000 for Leffler. Cobb County, 3 for Warnock, 1 for Leffler. You also have votes in Savannah, 4-1 for Raphael Warnock. So a lot of these are the mail-in ballots, and they will very heavily favor the Democratic Party. And one thing that is surprising to look at is just all these updates for these races. Everything was worse than what they expected for the GOP. You have all of these numbers coming in. You had Republicans expected to win 56. They won 54, 20 to 18. 39, 38, 32, 31. So Republicans just underperformed expectations everywhere. Democrats, they did underperform a few of them, but you have this one, Democrats plus 13 to plus 16. So the Democratic Party definitely did better than what people expected, and Republicans did worse, and that's why the New York Times has basically projecting that Raphael Warnock was going to win this entire time. This is their win percentage over time. You had started off with Warnock, and it slowly increased over time until now, where he is at 100%. And even when Leffler was leading, as many of us had expected, Warnock's chances still continue to increase. And if you do want to take a look at the numbers between Ossoff and Perdue, and really, as you can see, this is the estimated vote share that has already been counted, but really, these last 2-3%, it's the last 2-3% that will take a long time to count. So just wait. But Ossoff, Warnock, they have won. I mean, it's very likely Ossoff, over 95% chance. That's basically the highest they can give to him, besides giving him the race. As you can see, expected plus 94 for the Democrats, 94.82. Actual plus 96, 96.89. So Jon Ossoff outperforming expectations, and for results that are still, or votes that are still remaining, it's the same thing. You have a lot of votes from the cab for Ossoff, from Fulton County as well, and from Chatham County. So Ossoff is going to defeat David Perdue, and really it's quite sad how David Perdue lost this race. I mean, this is a race that he's a Republican in Georgia. If he were just less pro-Trump and a little bit more of just a conservative, he would have won his race. There's no doubt about that. If they did not have Trump come out for them, and they did not keep defending Trump, backing Trump on everything, I mean, that was really the strategy. I mean, this strategy was just to support Trump on everything and get those Trump Republicans to come out for them. But that did not happen. There were a lot of Republicans who were more moderate that did not want to vote for these two candidates, and there were also a lot of Trump supporters who didn't think they were doing enough. So they kind of just shot themselves in the back there. Their chances over time, you see Perdue was over a little bit at one point in time, but really it's been Perdue losing the entire time, and this race, it will be called soon, so don't worry about that. There's no chance that Perdue is going to win. So the Democrats have essentially won the United States Senate, the House, and the presidency, completing their trifecta. However, it is a very, very narrow trifecta, and they will have to compromise a little bit just to get all of the senators and representatives to vote. But I believe the $2,000 checks, they will be coming very soon as Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and all of these senators and representatives finished getting inaugurated. Most of the Congress actually already got inaugurated, except for, of course, Ossoff, Warnock, and I believe that one race left in the 22nd district of New York with a representative there, the race still not being over. So looking at where did Ossoff and Perdue, or Ossoff and Warnock, improve, I guess. So this is the Ossoff numbers. Warnock, just across the board, does a little bit better, if not the same. So if we were to take a look at age, this is the most specific one right here. Now, age was actually something that kind of alarmed me. 26% of voters were 65 and older. I thought that was going to be bad. I thought that if Democrats lost these two races, I predicted that both of them would win, so I guess that's a win for me, I guess. But 26%, I was worried about that number because that is higher than the 65 and older that we saw by 7%, 19%, and this just proves old people vote. I mean, they vote all the time. So 19% to 26, that was a little bit worrying, and Perdue won actually 62% of the vote from the 65 and older, so he actually did better among these voters by 4%, and these voters made up a larger part of the electorate. So this was bad. I mean, just looking at these numbers alone, it does not look good for Jon Ossoff. However, Jon Ossoff was able to flip the 40 to 49 category to 51 in favor of him, and Jon Ossoff won 65 or 68, 65, 62 for those youngest ones, when he won 51, 59, 53. So those younger voters, they came out for Ossoff. They did not come out for David Perdue, and that is what won Jon Ossoff won Jon Ossoff these demographic groups by such a large margin and won him the race. I mean, 40-49, Jon Ossoff, I believe, was also able to flip it, at 51, and then 50 to 64, it was at 54%. David Perdue did increase by a little bit there. So, I mean, these numbers, I think they're good. If you want to take a look at the numbers by race, we can actually look at this right here. You see, this is Ossoff in November, that's the light blue. Ossoff yesterday, that's the darker blue. Perdue in November is that lighter red, and Perdue in red is that darker red, is Perdue yesterday. So you see, both candidates did better among white voters just because there are no split. They're not split. There are no voters who are voting for third-party candidates. You only vote for two. That's how a runoff works. but both of them were able to increase by 1%, so that basically stayed the same. The white vote, the black vote, this was what made the difference, 87 to 92, and then Perdue 11 to 8. So an increase for Jon Ossoff here, and then for the Latino vote, 52 to 63 and 43 to 37. So Perdue also fell short there. Other groups, David Perdue actually did better, and Ossoff did worse. But that block vote, that 5%, was enough to get Jon Ossoff over the top, because the block vote makes up quite a big part of the electorate there in the state of Georgia. And Jon Ossoff will be inaugurated very, very soon once this race is called, because Perdue is no longer a senator. His last day in the Senate was the 4th of January when he was in quarantine. I believe he's still in quarantine right now. Kelly Leffler will be replaced very, very soon. She is still going to vote in that joint session of Congress today. And then looking at the betting odds, so looking at how this race changed over time last night, you see right now Ossoff at 98, Perdue at 2 cents a share. And then you see when the early results, the first results were coming in, it looks as if David Perdue was going to win this race, but many people still had hope in Ossoff. And then once you got more results coming in, it became clear that the Democratic Party was going to win the race. And then between between Warnock and Leffler, you see right here, pretty much the same story. You saw that the chances for Leffler came up a little bit, but right after that, Warnock's chances just went to the top. So that is why, both these senators are going to lose their seats, both of these Republican incumbents, and that gives the Democratic Party 50 seats in the United States Senate to 50 seats for the Republicans. And the chances of Democrats winning the Senate, this is basically the chances of both Democrats winning, and the Republicans, it's just chances of one Republican winning. You see right here, same thing, because Republicans only have to win one seat, so that's why it went up so high. But then became clear Democrats were going to sweep the Senate, House, and the presidency. So clean sweep for Democrats in 2020. This is pretty much the same thing you have right here. It went up by a lot for the Democratic Party. I mean, it went down to 35 cents a share at one point in time. That is 19 hours ago as of right now. So the Democratic Party, you should be very, very happy about these numbers. This could not have gone better in Georgia. I mean, Georgia right now, it's a blue state. I mean, they did win less House seats, but that's just because of gerrymandering. I mean, they won both Senate seats, and they won the presidency. So right now, Georgia has been completely flipped blue on the Senate and presidential levels. I mean, this is the first time in 80 years, I believe, that two Democrats will hold both seats in Georgia. So definitely it's going to be competitive in 2024. But right now, Democrats should be very, very happy about where they are at and on the presidential level. And Ossoff and Warnock are very, very, very likely to outperform Joe Biden in terms of the margins between them and their Republican opponents. So Jon Ossoff right now, his numbers will continue to increase throughout the day. We may get a call pretty soon. Warnock's rates has already been called. He's at 50.6. Kelly Leffler at 49.4. So these two races have been great for the Democrats, as I've said, and we'll see if these Republicans will concede the race. I mean, last night when it was already clear that Warnock was going to win, Kelly Leffler said they were going to win and that they will continue in their fight somehow. So I doubt they will concede. If anyone's going to concede, I think it will be David Perdue. He is more of a traditional Republican, or he was. And then you have Kelly Leffler, who is, more pro-Trump than anyone has ever been. So I think that Kelly Leffler just not being from Georgia definitely played a factor in that. And also, honestly, these two senators, I mean, they made so many mistakes. Like, not going to the debate, that was not going to help you. For David Perdue, I mean, all you really had to do was just not, put yourself into scandals with stocks, less than a year before your re-election, in a state that you knew was going to be close. And, if you weren't so pro-Trump in a state that believes that their votes were, accurate, then, I mean, maybe you honestly could have won. I mean, these two Republicans messed up so much here. And that will benefit the Democratic Party. I think that these two Democrats ran a very, very strong campaign, Warnock and Ossoff. I think they did very, very well. You had Barack Obama who helped a lot there. I mean, honestly, I think Stacey Abrams should be given, something by the Democratic Party. I mean, she did very, very well. I think that if she did not lose to Brian Kemp by such a small margin, I think that this never would have happened. I mean, she showed that a Democrat could win in Georgia. I mean, her race was, less close in with races that we saw this year and in November, but she did very, very well for a Democrat in Georgia. And Joe Biden, I mean, he also did well. So if Joe Biden did not win Georgia, I don't think the Democrats would have won. I think they would have, just been demotivated and just not come out. So Joe Biden, he also did a lot, but that was because of what Stacey Abrams and Democrats have been doing for decades there in Georgia, and of course you had Barack Obama as well. So I think that this all came from Stacey Abrams, a lot of it, and of course everybody who was on the ground helping them. But she really did change the politics there in the state of Georgia. And so yeah, I think that these two races have been very beneficial for the Democratic Party. We'll see what they do. I think that they're going to take full advantage of this, because in 2022, it's not looking the best for them. It's not looking that terrible, but Republicans have a very good chance. So they should capitalize on this moment and get what they want to get that they haven't been able to get over the last 6 years, past. So, very good day for the Democrats. That will wrap up this video. Make sure you join my Discord server if you have not, the link to which is at the very top of the description below. And I also have channel memberships, so check those out if you're interested. I mean, these races went exactly like I had said. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for the support throughout my coverage of these races. And I will see you guys in the next video.